Welcome to episode 4. In this episode, I want to introduce you to some of my extended family as it existed when I was a kid. This is the only picture I have of my dad and his family all in one place. It was taken in my grandparents' front yard. From left to right are Corky, Cheryl, Edna, Grandma and Grandpa, me, my dad, Darius, Lola, and Johnny. My grandfather, Arthur Edward Huthman, was born in 1894. He worked in heavy construction and later owned various small businesses, including a restaurant, a chicken farm, and a laundry. My grandmother, Vida Ellen Steckel Huthman, was born in 1894. She raised the 5 children and later worked alongside my grandfather in the laundry. My grandparents lived nearby. We would see them often, and sometimes they would accompany us on weekend adventures. Toward the end of their life, they lived in Parker, just up the street from my parents' house, and cruised around the park in their pink golf cart. My dad's oldest sister, Lola, was born in 1913. Her husband, Johnny, was a minor league baseball player when he was young and also a deputy U.S. Marshal in the Prescott, Arizona area for a while. Lola had 2 sons from a previous marriage, Larry and Lyle Morris. This is Lyle, who was about a year older than Cheryl. Here's Lola and Johnny in their home with Darius. This looks like Johnny is getting ready to ski behind our boat. Here's Lola and my dad relaxing on a beach. Lola and Johnny had a boat similar to ours. When Johnny was very young, he lived in Parker with his parents and siblings. When they retired, they bought a house in Parker 2 doors down from my parents. My dad's other sister, Edna, lived walking distance from our house. I walked or rode my bike past their house every day on my way to junior high school. Jerry was a salesman and always had a joke to tell. Edna and Jerry had 2 sons, Gary and Kenny, on the left in this picture. Gary went on to publish 14 Western novels, and Kenny became a researcher at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Here's Edna in her classic Mercury. And here they are hanging out on the beach with my grandparents on a water ski trip. Edna and Jerry also bought a house in Blue Water Lagoon, 4 houses down from my parents. This is my dad's middle brother, Corky. His real name was Arthur Edwin Huthman, but I never knew that until I was an adult. He was born in 1930. All of the grave markers that I've shown so far in this video are all in the Parker Cemetery in Parker, Arizona. Corky always had the coolest gadgets, the best stereos and televisions, and the coolest cars, like this classic Thunderbird. Here he is with his Studebaker sports car. He also owned an airplane for a while, a Cessna Cardinal RG. This is my dad's youngest brother, Darius Dean Huthman. He was born in 1935, so he was about 14 years younger than my dad and 22 years younger than his sister Lola. He was married to Dottie, whose real name is Dorothea, and they had 2 daughters. Darius was the last of my dad's siblings when he passed away in 2021. Here is a picture of my Aunt Dottie taken in 2025, along with daughters Cindy Kelvin and Deanna Zackerson. Now moving on to my mom's side of the family. My mom's mother was born Mary Melinda Shields in 1884. She was called Linny by the adults and Nanny by the grandchildren. She married Augustus Champion Anderson, and they had 7 children, of which my mom was number 6. Problems with the marriage resulted in her taking the 7 children, leaving Terre Haute, Indiana, and moving to Grand Junction, Colorado. She raised the 7 kids alone through the Great Depression, made dolls and stuffed toys for everyone, and died in 1983 at the age of 99. To put that in perspective, she was born at a time when the cavalry was still fighting Apache Indians in the Southwest. She spent her childhood in a time without automobiles. She was 19 years old when the Wright brothers first flew, and she lived to see men walk on the moon and the first space shuttle launches. Here's a picture of her with my cousins, Karen and Beverly. Visiting my mom's family usually meant traveling to Colorado, so almost every summer we would pack up the station wagon and drive from Downey to Grand Junction to visit Nanny and my mom's extended family. Cars then did not have air conditioning, so we usually tried to cross the desert at night. Late one night we hit a pothole, a hubcap came off and rolled out into the desert. My dad stopped and searched for it, but couldn't find it. Note the missing hubcap as we unload from that trip. Months later, crossing the same stretch of desert in daylight, my dad suddenly stopped the car, walked out into the desert, and pulled the hubcap out from a bush. My dad always seemed to know exactly where he was, like a human GPS. Also note that my dad is smoking, so this is pre-Mormon days. Traveling to Colorado or Idaho meant passing through Utah by one route or another. Upon arriving in Grand Junction, we would, of course, have to see Nanny first. Then we would start to see other relatives. This is my mom's oldest brother, Harold, and his wife, Eva. I don't really remember my mom's older sister, Linnell. She died when I was fairly young. I remember visiting Bob, but I don't have any pictures of either of them. We spent a lot of time with my mom's sister, Margaret, her husband, Pete Christensen, and their daughter, Karen, who was about a year older than me. This is Margaret's older son, Jimmy, his wife, Edith, and their daughter, Laurie, who is a couple years younger than me. Pete had an orchard with cherries and I think also peaches. He told me, "You know, Stevie, all I ever wanted to do was grow things." Pete was about 30 years older than Margaret. He had fought in World War I. He said, "I joined the Marines 'cause all they were doing was chasing train robbers, but I ended up in the trenches in France." The train robbers were people like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but I guess he never got to chase them. Pete lived to be 99. He outlived Margaret, who died in a car accident in her 60s. This is my mom's youngest brother, Jack, his wife, Donna, and their kids, Beverly, Larry, and Ruth. And here's Jack with my mom. Here's a group of cousins: Laurie, Cheryl, me, Ruthie, Beverly, Karen, and Larry. Looks like a birthday party. Larry, Ruthie, and I hanging out on a summer day. Larry and I playing badminton in front of Nanny's house in Grand Junction. Here's Jack and his family in front of our house. They moved to California for a few years. Larry went to my high school. Here they are with us at an aquarium. It looks like Cheryl is holding Ruthie. Larry and I are in front of our house showing off some models that I built. I'm holding a large-scale Model T hot rod, and Larry is holding my pickup truck pulling a boat with a motorcycle in the truck. It looks like I'm modeling my future. And here is Dad and Jack modeling some fish. This is Jack and Donna later in life. A trip to Colorado sometimes included a camping and fishing trip on Grand Mesa. Here's Uncle Jack, Russell Peischer, and my dad all showing off the same fish. The little teardrop trailer that my dad borrowed from a relative is the ancestor of the ones they still make today. It looks like Cheryl caught a fish too. This is another trip, a different year. It looks like Dad is helping us little people get ready to fish with Beverly, Cheryl, Larry, and I. One year we took Cousin Jimmy's boat to a lake and went water skiing. We also rode on something called an aquaplane, basically a board with a rope tied to the boat. You stand on the board and away you go. This may have been a side trip to Glenwood Springs. My dad's uncle had some ponies. He sat Cheryl and I on a couple of them and we trotted around the field. When he dumped some hay at the other end of the field, my pony took off like a rocket. When it came to the hay, it abruptly stopped and I went flying over its head into the hay. This is my parents' Grand Junction High School 20th reunion. I apparently had a serious 9-year-old style flirtation going on with this little girl. This is my mom's brother Dick, his wife Tilly, and their sons Jerry and Jimmy. They lived in American Falls, Idaho. They lived in town, but this picture shows some buildings and equipment out at their farm. Here's Cheryl and Jimmy with Uncle Dick, who is obviously outstanding in his field. There was always something fascinating to me about big mechanical equipment. They're like giant robots. When visiting American Falls, they would take us to swim at a public pool called Indian Springs. It wasn't very busy, and sometimes we had the place to ourselves. Here's Cheryl going off the high board. Me thinking about going off the high board. And on my way down. And here I am not quite flying, but falling with style. Here's Jimmy, Cheryl, Jerry, and I sitting outside the entrance to Indian Springs. Jimmy was later in a Special Forces Army unit called the Green Berets. He was killed in combat in Vietnam. One time when I was in Washington, D.C. on business, I located his name on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. Thanks for letting me share the old family with you, and I'll see you on the next one.